Welcome to Artless Nap.
Welcome back to Artless Nap. My name is Anthony Pago. I'm your host. Today, my co-host is David Glover. He is, I think, pretty much everybody in the Oklahoma City, maybe the Oklahoma area, considers you a foremost expert on voting.
One page ahead of everybody else, maybe.
One page, that's it. How did you get into?
Well, I just basically feel that a low tide of voters, we have some of the lowest voter turnout in the country, Oklahoma does, and I feel that, wisdom of crowds, the more people that are involved, the better decisions and more information that's gotten, and I just felt like there's some different things we can do to try to increase voter turnout and participation.
Yeah, and you've been doing this for how long now?
Oh, probably 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Really focused on this, but it's been an interest, but now it's turned into a little bit more than that with a couple of those websites.
And those websites are what?
There's 2 websites. The first one that I created was badvoter.org, and what that is, it's a place where anybody can go to see how many days anyone has last voted in Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. And I pull the information, the data from the state election board, and so anybody can check anybody out. Early on, people were checking out like Mary Fallon and Reed Drummond and Toby Keith, which his real name is Tony Cabell.
Really?
Toby Cabell. And it turned out none of the Thunder players voted or were even registered except Nick Collison, Mr. Thunder himself.
Really?
Yeah. And so when people realized that actually a study was done by these 2 guys named Gerber and Green, and it was a very big study on why would people vote, and people need a reason to vote. And it turns out one of the main reasons that people would vote is that they realize that their voting record is public, and once they realize that it's public, not how they voted but if they voted, it sort of encourages. Nobody wants to be a bad citizen or a bad voter, and everybody thinks they vote more often than they do. Yeah. Turns out, I've had about 20 people go, your data's wrong. I voted more recently this, and every time I've looked into it, they're wrong. And we look into it, and then they apologize. And the best way is to, number one, get some shame and some encouragement, knowing that your voting record is public. And then 2, and we'll go into more of this, but sign up for absentee ballots, whether you use it or not, and sign up for reminders. And all those things can be done at badvoter.org. And we have a sister site that's a little calmer and nicer for some people that don't like the shame aspect of being called a bad voter. Right now, if you voted absentee, like my dad, he's 86, you can go look up Tom Glover and click the one that, guys, it's 86 in Oklahoma City. Click on his report. It says that he's an excellent voter and that he's already voted in the next election, because we grabbed the data, and the state election board shows that the absentee ballots have come in. And so we record those, so you can actually, that's the only way you get excellent, is if you vote absentee.
Every time, huh?
That's right.
Well, do you have to re-sign up for absentee every time, or is this a continual process?
So the way absentee works in Oklahoma, we have a good and a bad system. One is that you don't have to have an excuse. Yeah. So you can just sign up. 2, you do have to sign up for every year, and people forget. And the Oklahoma County Election Board, they do a great job. But one thing they did is they stopped sending out these U.S. mail first class, hey, you were an absentee voter last year, do you want to sign back up? And people would fill the form out, click it, and say yes, and they'd say signed up. Well, they stopped doing that because of cost, and they decided there's a state system that has an online capability of signing up for absentee, and you can do it really quick, but you have to get reminders. Yeah. So at letsvoteok.com or badvoter.org, you can click on vote by mail, and it sends you to the state website where it takes about 2 minutes, and you can sign up. One interesting thing about absentee is Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians, they can all sign up for an absentee ballot. Mm-hmm. But only independents are allowed to vote in somebody else's party primary. No other party allows them to vote in their primary except Democrats, and they've done it for about 4 years now. So if you're an independent, you sort of get a bonus election. Usually you don't get to vote until the actual general. Yeah. So this way you can sort of get involved and sort of vote for who you want in the Democratic primary ahead of time. But to go back to the absentee ballot, even though people, I have a ton of friends who go, oh, I just like going to the polls and standing in line and waiting and getting the cookies from those nice old women that, it's good to see they're still alive. Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. We need more poll workers or younger. But people should sign up for absentee ballot, even if you plan on going actually to the polls. Okay. And this is why. You get the ballot 3 weeks ahead of time. You can research it. You can sort of sometimes there's state questions like 788 this year, or some other judgeships or county commissioner or corporation commission. And a lot of people don't know about any of these things. And when they go just to the polls, there's a lot of things, and they usually are just going to vote for maybe some of the top tier ballot things, and then they blow off all the rest, and it's called undervotes. And you see that, like for governor or president, you get a lot of people vote, and then as it goes down, less people vote because they don't have the information. So absentee ballot gives you it's the ultimate reminder that there's an election, and you can research it ahead of time, which makes life easy, and you still don't have to vote it. What's great is that you can still blow it off, throw it away, keep it, do whatever you want with it, turn it into a poster or painting, but you still can go to the polls, and there is a little information there that goes, they'll notice that you got an absentee ballot, and they'll say, hey, did you vote absentee? And you say, if you didn't, you say no, and they'll give you a regular ballot.
Good.
And if they mess that up, just call the county election board, and they'll explain to the poll worker. There's one other interesting thing. So would you like me to try to fool you on something real quick?
Okay, yeah, I'd love to, yeah.
Do you know that you have to have a photo ID to vote in Oklahoma?
Yeah, I mean, I have heard that you can sign an affidavit.
Trick question. You're halfway right. So you don't have to have a photo ID.
Okay.
You can have a proper photo ID, or you can have just the paper voter ID card and nothing else, or you can have neither. And as long as you're in your proper precinct and you're registered to vote, you can fill out what's called a provisional ballot.
Okay.
Now, the people that work there, they've been trained and they know how to do this, but some of them forget, or some of them haven't done it very often, so they're not used to it. So, I wouldn't recommend saying you don't have your photo ID or voter ID card, even if you do, and see if they ask you as a test. But they should. And if they don't, just call the county election board. They'll explain it to them. But you can also, at either one of those websites, badvoter.org or letsvoteok.com, you can go to check registration, and you click a little check mark on the state website where we send you, and they'll send you a new paper voter ID card in the mail in a week or so.
Nice. Well, now you mentioned that people want to be informed, and I see your posts are all over the place. People are responding, saying they're waiting for your, your critiques or your advice. Are you willing to give some thumbs up, some thumbs down?
On some of the races that no one knows. Actually, this time you probably saw something. I sent out a post saying, "Hey, who knows about these few races?" Because usually I am somebody that people goes, "Hey, well, what do you think about this or that?" And I get a lot of private messages that way. Yeah. But like some of them, there's the Senate District 40, which is Irving Yin, he's a much more moderate Republican than most. The anti-vaxxers really don't like him. But there's two women running, and they're both great, and they're both working really hard. And I wrote the other day that neither one of them is going to lose because of lack of effort. Yeah. And it's kind of like, I like them both in different ways. They're going to probably vote very similarly, but one of them is going to make it through, and whoever's stronger will be going against Yin, and we're going to have good representation there. So one's a teacher, and one's done a lot of work out at the Capitol, so they're both great.
Do we have a lot of teachers running right now?
There's a ton of teachers running in both parties, but and sometimes there's multiple in one race. But the county commissioner race has John Pettis, who. Al McCaffrey, a guy named Ben John Liu, and Kerry Bloomert. And I've got to know Kerry recently, and Al's a great guy. He's a legislator, and I don't know. I don't think Pettis is actively campaigning now, but that's going to be an interesting race. That might end up going to runoff, and then CD5, congressional race has a lot of interesting.
Right, I'll be voting in that. We have a lot of big contenders there, and then we have a bona fide rock star.
That's right. Lead guitarist or drummer for the Chainsaw Kittens.
Yeah, he's the lead singer. He's the founding member, so he started the whole shebang.
I met him the other day. He seems like a really nice guy. Yeah, I don't know much about him, but
Todd Meade, 5th District. He'll be getting my vote because he's a friend of mine, and I agree with his politics, especially after the interview.
And I always say this to everybody. Everybody should vote for their friend first, and everybody gets that, and that's the way it should be. Now, there's another thing that people should do is sign up for reminders. The state has a system which is is okay, but it sends you any election that occurs in Oklahoma County, you're going to get a reminder about that.
Yeah.
So there's some false positives there. We have a reminder system at both those websites, which I guess, can you flash?
Oh yeah, I can put
the right here. Let me see. Right here. Do you see right here?
I can
roughly.
get it right there.
Okay. Yeah, or right here.
It'll probably be on this.
Put it on my forehead. I mean, so. But what it is, we have a reminder system, which is the best reminder system. There's probably a dozen different election and voting reminder systems that are out there, but this one from Turbo Vote is the best, and they send specific text and or email reminders to you for your specific elections, which is really great, and they're just excellent. And we have a special portal which is linked at the main websites. But if you go to ok.turbovote.org, you can sign up for election reminders, and they'll come every year, so you're sort of reminded to re-sign up for the absentee ballot.
Yeah.
Which is just the best.
Right. Have you ever skipped voting?
I think everybody has at some point. That's why I highly recommend the absentee ballot, because it's, I think that everybody in Oklahoma does this. They're driving down the road on some random Tuesday, throughout the year, and it's like, vote today here. And they're thinking like, well, what was that one for? Is it a school board election or a bond election or what was it? And so the thing is then they feel like, well, I don't want to vote the wrong way, so I'm just not going to vote.
Right.
And so they don't vote because they weren't reminded. So if they would sign up for the absentee ballot, the ultimate reminder, they can get it ahead of time and go, oh, this is a bond issue that really is trying to do some good stuff. I should, be sure I vote on that and tell my family and friends.
Yeah.
And so that's the way. I mean, everybody's missed election. Anybody who says they didn't, you can go and actually see all of your votes, and you can see any that you've missed, but everybody misses some.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I heard about you when I was trying to inform myself during midterms a number of years ago, and I started drawing politicians as cats. I ended up dating somebody at the local rag. Right. And you were back then still doing like kicking butt, trying to get people voting. I think Bad Voter was, how long has that been up?
Probably about 4 years now. I need to double check.
Be about that long.
It was. There's actually a Ignite is a 5-minute, like 20 slides thing, and I presented it. If you go, I don't know, you put in some words, something about shame and voting.
Well, I can throw a link down below.
Yeah, you can go see the 5-minute overview on Bad Voter, and we've had tens of thousands of people every year look themselves up, and I look at the web traffic. We have a little clicky on it, and so right before elections, all of a sudden people start really looking each other up, and it goes down, and some people like Russell Westbrook gets looked up a lot. He finally actually registered to vote in Oklahoma.
Nice. Go Westbrook.
Like October 2016.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we should have these people that are supposedly, leaders and role models,
right.
Wanting to vote more. We got to, I just feel like if more people showed up, we'd have, better outcomes. Because, and I will say that rich, old, white people, they vote.
They get out and vote.
So, if you're younger or not as rich and, might be a person of color or, you have a little bit more wide alternative thoughts, the only way you're going to overcome some of that is by, showing up in greater
getting
numbers.
out there. I think part of what keeps a lot of people out is the thought they've been told repeatedly that voting doesn't really matter, that everything's fixed, there are too many Republicans, there are too many old white, conservatives or whatever. Is that true? Well,
yeah, to an extent. I mean, what happens is that, when you keep on having an outcome that's not working for you, it's natural to say, obviously, this doesn't matter, and I don't really need to show up. But I mean, it's kind of like, but what's interesting is I'm actually way more interested in people that, try to get people more involved with city council, because city council has way more control and what happens with your life and the alignment of your car and how the roads are and police and fire and infrastructure. Way more. So what's really weird is we have a backward system. People get very excited about the presidential election, which it doesn't matter who you vote for in Oklahoma for president, and they get very not so excited about city council and mayor's election, when actually those are much more important on the outcome of your daily life and how things are. I mean, Maps has been really fantastic. There's some really neat projects. I think most people feel like, who really decides those projects? And if people were a little more vocal, we might have sort of more of that money coming to, the neighborhoods and maybe smaller projects outside of, maybe some of the bigger downtown projects. And it's important to have a great downtown that we're proud of. But I mean, I think we might, share the love a little bit lower out there. Another thing I'm really into is trying to get 12 wards for Oklahoma City. Traditionally, since 1927, we've had 8 wards.
Okay.
Now, before, and the population since 1927 has grown 3.5 times, and the land area has quadrupled.
Oh my God!
So it's hard to say that we haven't maybe were we way too represented then and not enough now? Are we perfect now?
Yeah.
My feeling is that moving to 12 would be great, but at least 10 would be great. And we had a meeting with David Holt, the new mayor, and he seems amenable to 10 maybe in the future because he sees that there's a Hispanic and Latino population that's in a certain area that feels underrepresented, and so we might be able to, and also the African American traditional ward, which was Ward 7.
Yeah.
The Southern Edmond, is having more development and more people voting. So there's potentially over time they wouldn't actually have as much representation. So we could consolidate a little bit more up for Ward 7, and then maybe a Hispanic ward, and then maybe another ward in the city. Right now, the size of the wards equal the Senate districts for state Senate. So I would think most people think, okay, Senate districts, are big and handle a lot of people. And the House districts, are a little bit closer to the people. And then I would think most people would say wards are, even better represented but it's
not that way.
Not that way.
So when these names are usually not known to people, we do know some of the bigger names because we have Facebook and we have, Channel 4, Channel 5, Channel 9, or whatever. How do you personally, or how do you suggest people find out about these smaller names where they might not have heard them before and they want to do their research?
So, the actual League of Women Voters has something called Vote 411, and you can look it up and put it down. Mm-hmm. They actually have a pretty good system which looks at all the candidates, and they get nonpartisan information. That's really good. Oklahoma Progressive Network has created a civic engine which allows for very similar information, and they're nonpartisan, but they provide really good information. And then the best is the absentee ballot, because you can look at it ahead of time and do the research and find out. You have 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, most people spend less than 3 to 5 minutes probably in the voting booth. Here you have, much more time to be able to sort of figure it out and decide. And then, sometimes I go, if I'm looking at a race I don't know much about, and if most of my closer good friends say this person, I'm naturally probably more likely to go with that person. Yeah.
Do you have any predictions for the Tuesday coming up?
Well, I hear, I just saw Bill Shepard from Sooner Poll. His politics are a little pretty strong right of center, and but he thinks that I'm not sure what time this is going to drop. So if it drops afterwards, that's okay
then we'll know.
Too. That's okay too. You can say how wrong I was. He thinks that Kevin Stitt and Lamb are going to get into runoff, and Mick is not. But then I just saw a few days after that, Mick is ahead of the polls.
Really?
And I think that Lamb. I think if he is the nominee, I think Drew Edmondson will have a better chance of beating Lamb. Just because he's more of the traditional, he's been there for 8 years, hard to run as an outsider, and he's tied to Fallon in lots of ways.
Yeah.
And Kevin Stitt is kind of a Trump, I'm an independent businessman that's successful, and Mick has a pretty good name in urban Oklahoma City for trying to be a little bit more bipartisan and get things done.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting. I think Drew will get the Democratic nominee, and I think 788 will pass, but not by much.
Really? You think it'll pass?
Yeah, I think it will. But there's $500,000 being spent, and I've seen the ads. It seems like there's a lot of bad information.
Yeah, a lot. I've seen it myself, and I wanted to do a little report on it, but it is a little too close to the election to kind of disseminate that and get it in everybody's hands.
It'll be interesting. I mean, Bud Scott would be somebody to bring in later. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I do know Bud.
New Health Solutions, and he's a lawyer and he's a President's Leadership Class scholar at the University of Oklahoma. And he has he's getting a consortium of people together to try to make sure it's done right.
Good.
Because he doesn't want, no one wants just Wild West, no regulation, Nobody wants super clamp down regulation where you can't do what you want. You want to do something smart, and I think they're going to try to strike a balance. And I think they'll have to go to a special session, to do that.
Yeah, I mean, Mary Fallon said that she expects to, or she will put that into special session if and when it passes, which kind of scares the hell out of me. I'm not too sure.
Well, they have to put a few ground rules in, and they say it is a bad thing, that this. Here's the thing. I mean, they got the 65,000 signatures, but from what I hear, they were just on the edge of getting them. If anybody had said, hey, I think those signatures aren't good, I don't think it'd be on the ballot.
Really?
So I'm not sure why the no group didn't get a little bit smarter earlier, because there were barely enough signatures, and I'm sure they could have found some ones that were...
contested that, yeah. I know the state would have loved to drop that off of the state questions list. We have another one coming up, too, don't we? The teachers' state questions. So the... State Supreme Court will probably figure that. Are going to rule on that probably in the next week or so. They just had big arguments at the Supreme Court on whether or not. It seems like that most of the justices were a little bit more on the people that are petitioning to try to stop it. Had a little harder time with their rationale that they left on certain things onto the question that one of the things they left on was the hotel motel tax, which is not actually on there. And then also they don't actually explain where this money is going. For teachers' salary raises, and some of the justices felt that was not providing the public proper information. So we'll see if that makes it or not. Here, let me look at my cheat sheet, see if there's anything. So what else are you thinking about? What about? Well, I'm just curious, what do you think is driving voters as far as policy? What do you think people in Oklahoma City and the surrounding metropolitan area and the state, what are they worried about? Why are they going to be voting the way they're going to be voting?
Well, it's been known that 788, the question on medical cannabis, will bring a younger, more independent voter that usually doesn't vote. So that's presumed. These primaries usually have less people, and the people that show up are usually more informed. So we'll see. It's just, there's also talk of consolidating election dates that passed recently, and so there's going to be more bigger things on fewer dates. So that should actually help.
Interesting.
And I will give David Holt good props. He did more for voting and election modernization at the state level than any other person, and he tried to get other things passed. And online voter registration passed. I think, gosh, it's been over. I don't even want to say how many years. You could put that up there if you want.
Yeah.
But a lot longer than most people think. And we still don't have anything because the way they wrote it, they really tied it to sort of a database with the Department of Public Safety and your driver's license, and automatically checking information and putting the signature in a secure file.
Yeah.
And it's made it really difficult. They could have online voter registration tomorrow if they wanted to. They could put an online PDF. You could fill it out. You could sign with your mouse, and you're probably okay there. But they don't, because the way the legislation was written, it made it a lot more difficult to get it going now. But there is talk that the state election board is going to have a system which is going to take care of about 60 or 70% of the people that want to change their address or party affiliation inside the county. And supposedly that's going to be fixed a little bit sooner, and that should be up and running hopefully by November. Yeah,
I've seen a couple states are talking about maybe it's being implemented, the automatic registration once you turn 18.
Right.
Do you like this idea?
I like it a lot. Because what it does is that, why create hurdles? Why not let everybody be registered and then vote?
Yeah.
One really slick thing with Oklahoma is that we're one of the few states that all the voting machines are the same, which is great. All the systems are the same. They're all paper ballots, so there's a paper ballot backup.
Right.
And so it's one of the few states that has done almost everything right. So when you win an election and let's say it's a few thousand votes and somebody wins by 5 or 10 votes, well, guess what? If they do a recount, you're going to win by about 5 or 10 votes. It's rare that anything changes. If there's maybe 2 or 3 votes and it was a big election, I'd say, check it out. But
it's worth it.
We have an excellent election board, ok.elections.gov, I think, or if you go to ok.gov/elections, but they have hundreds of links, and that's why I've taken the few best links for letsvoteok.com or badvoter.org. They both have similar information. So the biggest thing is you can register at there. You can sign up for reminders. You can sign up for vote by mail, and you can check how many days it's been since you or anyone has last voted.
Yeah.
So all those are the main things that people are looking for when it comes to voting in elections.
Right. I am going to take a quick break. We're going to restart these cameras, and then we will pick up with the last of the segment.
Welcome to Artless Nap.
Welcome back to Artless Nap. We had to take a quick break to get the equipment rolling again, but we will pick right back up where we left off, which was, what were we talking about?
Voting and elections.
Yeah.
But here's another thing at those two websites, which you can flash constantly.
Yeah.
The other great thing is under check registration, you're able to put in your name and birthday on the check registration area, and you can actually pull up a sample ballot. So if you don't choose the absentee ballot, which you should anyway, you can actually click and then see a PDF online of exactly what you're going to vote for. So you can actually print that out and do some research and still go to the polls with your cheat sheet. Mm-hmm. And what's also great is that it tracks when the county sends you your absentee ballot, that they've got your absentee ballot back in and that they've counted your absentee ballot. So you can actually follow along to make sure that your vote actually counts. A lot of people think, well, I don't want to do the absentee thing because I don't know if it's actually really going to count. It does. Okay. In fact, you'll know afterwards too, because you'll get credit at bad voter, but also it'll show on the website that they've received it back in. But most people think, how much postage you have to do? Dirty secret, you probably could put no postage on. The post office will send absentee ballots.
Really?
So put on one stamp, even though it's thick. You can put on more if you want.
Yeah.
But that's really sort of handy. And now the one little trip up that some people say about absentee ballots that's kind of a hassle is that you have to have your ballot notarized unless you're physically incapacitated. Then you can get two witnesses. But the notary, this is the thing. Everybody drives by probably 2 or 3 tag agencies every day.
Yeah, they're all over.
They're everywhere. I mean, you can't swing a dead cat and not find a tag agency. And so what's great is that the tag agencies know they have to notarize it and they have to do it for free, and they do it quickly.
It's free.
So no one can charge you to notarize an absentee ballot. Now, they can choose not to notarize it because, you don't bank there or something.
Oh, okay.
But if they do notarize it, they cannot charge you.
Well, that makes sense because it'd be an unfair tax. It would discourage poorer voters from getting their ballots cast.
Right. And we have a no excuse absentee state, meaning you can do it for any reason. I mean, you can be living here and going to work and in town and still vote absentee.
Yeah. So the future of voting, you described something I wasn't aware of. We're one of the worst gerrymandered.
So overall, when the mathematicians plug in the models of states and how the districts are drawn, Oklahoma is usually in the top 8 to 10 worst gerrymandered states in the nation. In fact, it goes both ways though. I mean, like this district right here, you're in District 88, I think, and he doesn't have a candidate. The reason why he doesn't have a candidate is because it's too Democratic. And because it's so Democratic, you're actually making it harder for other Democrats nearby to get votes because there's a thing called packing. And so one way, if you're the party in power, you want to put as many of your opponents all in one district so that they can't win multiple districts.
Gotcha.
That's called packing. Another one is to split them in such a way so they can't win. That's called cracking. And so there's math that's been going on that people can sort of plug it in and draw fair districts, and then which turn out to be much fairer. In fact, the Supreme Court just sort of pushed this gerrymandering case back down to the lower courts. There's some silver linings in that case, and it'll be interesting. Maybe in the next 6 months we'll see something change because, basically almost everybody feels this one phrase, and almost everybody agrees with it. Should politicians pick their voters, or should voters pick the politicians? Right. And the politicians want to pick their voters, and the party in power wants to do that. But it's kind of cool for either party in power to do that. Yeah. So I'm nonpartisan on that. I just want it to be fair.
Yeah. Now, you want to take some, just for a bit of fun, do you want to take some random wild guesses at who's going to throw their hat in the ring for the presidential election?
Wow, I have almost no idea. It seems like Elizabeth Warren.
I hope.
She might. Cory Booker might. Kamala Harris from California. The guy from Maryland who is Martin O'Malley. He's making the rounds. Joe Biden's kind of old, but he might. And then, there might be some people on the Republican side. Depending on how things go, I mean, maybe Pence will be the nominee, or most likely Trump, I guess. But
well, yeah, Gillibrand is out there, saying a whole lot. Some of it makes a lot of sense to me, and that's kind of shocking to me.
Now, there's a Mormon who's from Utah who really gave the president a lot of hassle. Edmund McMillen, and he's like a CIA analyst or agent and Iraqi war veteran.
Oh, wow.
Look it up. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, he seems like he's really on the resistance on the Republican side.
Okay.
So we'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting.
Let me ask you, back to the local side. I've got a lot of friends who have told me that they register Republican because they can't influence Democrat. What does it matter if you're voting Democrat? You can't really influence the votes. I think they more mean on like the presidential side, governorship and stuff. Does that make any sense anymore? Is that going to change? If it makes sense now, is it always going to be?
Not enough people do it. So it's one of those things where they might. People have done that on both sides. People that were more conservative used to do that and say they registered Democratic so they could vote in the Democratic side.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough. It's hard to move that needle that much.
The math doesn't play out.
Some people have said that a bunch of teachers, we're going to re-register as Republicans to try to, vote in that primary. And it's really difficult to change. I mean, to move the big lever. For stuff like that. I mean, it's just hard.
Now, if you're going to be a teacher running for office, who could have foreseen the teacher, movement? Will their opponents bring up, hey, it looks like you've flipped parties a couple times, you're not predictable,
Well, that's possible. I mean, the carpetbagger, or switching party things never usually goes that well. I have a friend who is someone that's close to Mick Cornett, and they said that he could have won. He could have become governor if he would have changed party affiliation.
Really?
If he would have become a Democrat, maybe it's possible that if he would have gotten in early enough, he could have scared the Democrats out. Enough people in Oklahoma City that are, left of center and moderate, like Mick, and for lots of reasons. Mm-hmm. And so it's possible he could have gotten the Democratic nomination, and, that would have been an interesting race. I mean, I'm not sure. We'll see how he might become governor anyway. I mean, he's a fairly moderate, reasonable person. And, I just think Drew will probably stop more of the super crazy stuff if it comes through the legislature. But
do you see, on a national level, we see kind of the liberal side standing still, not going further left, and you see the right moving further right. So the spectrum's just kind of broadening just further to the right, which might make people think progressives or liberals are moving further to the left, but that's not really what's happening, at least in my mind. Do you see that happening here in our state? Do you see the right moving further right, or the opposite, maybe the right's moving further left?
It'll be interesting. I think they've gone about as far as they can, in that from what I hear from the Republicans is that truly, if you could press the magic button that would be a semi-reasonable, pragmatic button, probably short-term to improve the state would be more reasonable Republicans. Mm-hmm. And I think they're more out of control in being able to control their own caucus. They have the never tax people, and so they're not able to accomplish things because they have too much power and they've gone a little bit too far. Yeah. And I think they've realized that this one-way ratchet of taxes, works until it doesn't, and then it's hard to fix.
Right. Do you have any suggestions or ideas about what's coming to bring in more revenue, to change up how we're, funding our projects?
Well, everybody has part of it. I mean, this everybody's against waste, fraud, and abuse, and I think we've gotten about as tight as we can on that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think even the oil and gas guys were all of a sudden, it's like, 3%, 5% sounds great, because they thought it was going to go to 7 or more.
Sure.
And so, obviously everybody tries to protect themselves, but I think broadening the base when it comes to services. I mean, we're the only state in the nation that cities can only fund themselves through sales tax. And so usually there's a mix of income tax, property tax, and sales tax at cities. So overall, people don't realize this, but Oklahoma usually is in the bottom 5 of overall taxation. Okay. When you look at everything. Yeah. We have relatively low property tax, we have relatively medium to low income tax, and we have very high sales tax. Yeah. So that hits people, on the lower income brackets much more than the higher income brackets. Yeah. And so it's tough. I mean, we have a jail problem, and we have the highest incarceration rate for men and women of any city, country, or state in the world. Mm-hmm. And so, until we figure out maybe not locking people up because, we're mad at them for drug crimes. Chris Steele is a Republican who's a House Speaker, and now he's one of the best advocates for, criminal justice reform. And people are coming around, but I mean, we spend a lot of money, on incarceration versus mental health and trying to do stuff with drug rehabilitation.
Right, and it's an easy way to get a knee-jerk vote to say, I'm going to be tough on crime, all these criminals out there. And it's true, we do have crime here. It's not like this is a perfect haven. But there are better ways, in my opinion, and lots of other people's opinion, to manage some of the crime that comes from drug addiction.
And then it's bail, and then they're locking them up because they can't pay, and then we're paying to keep them in jail.
I mean, I thought we didn't have debtors jail.
That's turned out to be not quite the case the way we work it. I mean, we could do more recognizance. One thing to remember, and in fact, you're going to do a little research on ACLU, and there's a great video that's one of the most watched ACLU videos. I'm on the board of ACLU of Oklahoma, and it's about how much power and control the district attorney has, and that having somebody that's less about, lock them up, throw away the key, we don't care, into, hey, what's this person's real problem? Let's try to get them help, and let's try to save money at the same time. Yeah. It makes a huge difference who the district attorney is, and if you look up that video, it's excellent.
I will. Do you know if we have those drug courts where they do the arbitration that's specialized for people with addiction problems?
There are some, but I think they don't have enough funding, and then there's only so many slots, and then the number of beds that are available, is way under. Same thing with mental health. I mean, it's one of those things where you take away that, and then you push people onto the streets, and then they have problems, and then what do you do? It's like a little more empathy, a little bit more. What would Jesus really do? Probably is what we need.
I think we need more of that throughout the entirety of the nation, the globe. That needs to be done more. What are some? You said you are on the board with the ACLU. What are some? I mean, that's a particularly fantastic group. What are some other groups that people can look into or donate to around here that you like?
So, Oklahoma Policy Institute, oklahomapolicy.org, is one of the best overall fact-based information on trying to get people to understand we need proper funding for core services. And their message has always been excellent, and it's starting to really break through across the spectrum. So Oklahoma Policy, ACLU is excellent. Oklahoma Policy tries to get the legislature to do the right job, and if they don't, then the ACLU is there to sue them to stop them from doing the wrong job. So those are two of the best, and in the state.
Good. We'll throw links down there. What about your social media? I mean, do you want people to contact you? Do you want them?
Sure. I'm David Glover on Twitter and Facebook, so they can find me there anytime. And I usually accept friends unless, it looks like some Russian girl that I have no friends with.
Yeah, I get a lot of that. The weird scantily clad people that don't speak English half of the time in their posts.
Right.
Like, no.
Always good.
Not going to friend you today. No thanks, Russia. Not today.
Facebook's doing a good job with voting and elections and registration. They're trying to, in fact, they've hooked up with turbovote.org. Oh. And so, you have to get registered. You have to know when the votes are. You have to know your record is public. You have to sign up for the absentee ballot and also sign up for reminders. And then, just get out there and, vote more often and talk about it. Because I think enough people, learning about more of what's going on, especially on the lower races, the better off we'll be.
Good. Well, David Glover, thank you for
Thanks a lot, Anthony. I really appreciate it.
Yep. Well, this is Artless Nap. You guys get out there and vote. Early voting starts tomorrow. Today. What is today? Thursday? Today?
Well, today's Thursday, but God knows when you're going to actually post this.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, that's right.
Thursday, Friday, part of Saturday, and you can sign up for an absentee ballot up till 5 o'clock. That's in 35 more minutes today.
Oh, okay.
Which is 5 o'clock Wednesday before any election.
Yeah.
But sign up for it now, and it's good for the year.
Oh, good.
Advoter.org or letsvoteok.com.
We'll throw all those links down there. Thanks, guys, for listening to Artless Nap. Until next time.